Welcome aboard. Today we are in Nevada at the McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas. Today's tour has us flying northwest from here to fly over, well, maybe fly into Homey Airport. What is Homey Airport, some of you are asking? Well, that's the official name of one of the facilities most of you will know as Area 51. That's correct, that highly secretive United States Air Force facility that is the focal point of government conspiracies and extraterrestrial folklore. Before we get underway today, just take note of these aircraft that are at the terminal here today with us, these white aircraft with the red stripe, and we will be talking a little bit about them later in the flight today. Let's get the plane started, the cockpit set up, and get on our way. We will discuss the history and some of these theories that surround this secret facility deep in the Nevada desert. Fairly short taxi today. The airport code here in Las Vegas is KLAS, and the airport's about 5 miles from downtown Las Vegas. This was the location of originally Alamo Field, but it was purchased by Clark County and made into McCarran Field in 1948. Interestingly enough, our final destination today is a small airstrip that's also named Alamo. It's the Alamo Landing Field with a code L92. It's located in Alamo, which is in Lincoln County, Nevada. Not sure why this guy is pulling out into the taxiway ahead of us here, but we'll let him go on his way. If this is your first flight, welcome. What I do is I find interesting places to fly over and talk about, and we visit them here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Today we are back in the Cessna Grand Caravan, the 208B. Another vehicle on the taxiway. Busy airport today. You can see the Las Vegas Strip off to our left here. As we approach the hold short line here, we are ready for takeoff. Buckle up and let's get this plane in the air. We are airborne. Let's take a quick look at our flight plan today. We will be heading from here in Las Vegas up to Homey Airport, which is next to Groom Lake, which is also a landing strip. It's located on a large salt flat. And then we'll head east to a small landing strip called Alamo, and that will be our final destination. Today we will indeed be flying into that restricted airspace over Area 51. Off to our right, see downtown Las Vegas, and we will now head out into the Nevada desert. Area 51 refers to one of the facilities operated by the U.S. Air Force located within the Nevada Test and Training Range. Approximately 83 miles northwest of here in Las Vegas, the range facilities are used and operated by the Nellis Air Force Base, and the Groom Lake facility is administrated as a remote detachment from the Edwards Air Force Base in California. The Air Force Test Center, AFTC, or formerly known as the Air Force Flight Test Center, AFFTC. The AFTC conducts developmental testing and evaluation of manned and unmanned aircraft, avionics, and weapon systems. and is believed to operate what is known as Detachment 3, which is the unconfirmed name for the facilities at Groom Lake, Nevada, and where we are on our way to today. This is where the classified testing may or may not be carried out. This desolate area in the Nevada desert was used during World War II by the Army Airforces Gunnery Schools. The range, originally named the Tonopah Bombing Range in 1941, was divided into two ranges, the Tonopah General Range and the Las Vegas General Range, and multiple Army airfields were built here in proximity to the ranges. Just a couple of these were the Tonopah Army Airfield to the north and the Indian Springs Airfield to the south. Most of these airfields were closed by 1947, and in 1949 the Air Force, which became its own military branch in 1947, merged the Las Vegas Bombing and Gunnery Range and the Tonopah Bombing and Gunnery Range back into a single facility. In 1950, the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission committee selected the Las Vegas Bombing and Gunnery Range to be a test site for nuclear weapons. The first atomic weapon had been tested in Mexico. The testing site, known as the Nevada Test Site, or previously the Nevada Proving Grounds, was established in this 680 square mile area by President Harry S. Truman in December of 1950. On January 27th of 1951, the government detonated its first atomic device on the site, and then another total 1,021 nuclear detonations would take place. I believe there were somewhere like 928 tests, but some had multiple detonations. In July of 1962, President Kennedy signed the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which prohibited nuclear weapons tests and nuclear explosions underwater, in outer space, or in the atmosphere. So all that was done here after that was underground nuclear tests, and the last underground test occurred in September of 1992. Area 51 is actually Homey Airfield and the Groom Lake landing area that's contained in this restricted airspace known as the Groom Box. The name, however, Area 51, is a bit unconfirmed on how that came about, but the area does butt up against the Nevada Test Site, which was divided into numbered grids or areas. It's not part of that system, but at some point it is adjacent to Area 15, so some say that might be how it got its area name, for what that's worth. Area 51, not too far ahead of us. You can see the Salt Lake on the horizon. So where does all this secrecy and conspiracy stuff originate, you're probably asking yourself? Mostly it stems from the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, establishing Project AQUATONE, which was to develop a high-altitude, top-secret surveillance aircraft. In the early 1950s, the United States was attempting to develop ways to monitor the Soviet Union's nuclear ballistic missile program. Satellites were still years away, so the way to do this was to fly planes over the sites with good old-fashioned cameras. Okay, well, maybe giant, sophisticated cameras, and snap photos. The improving Soviet Union's air defenses and high-flying jet interceptors started to make these normal spy planes extremely risky. So this program was to develop the Lockheed U-2 Strategic Reconnaissance Aircraft. The U-2 would be a spy plane that would simply fly too high to be intercepted. It would fly at over 70,000 feet, and, well, of course, this would still involve illegally violating the Soviet airspace, but I guess if you can't see it or shoot at it, was it really there? The testing and pilot training programs could not be conducted at Edwards Air Force Base or Lockheed's facility because of the extreme secrecy surrounding the project, so the project director conducted a search for a suitable testing site for the U-2. He notified Lockheed about this potential site at Groom Lake, and they sent an inspection team out here. One of Lockheed's U-2 designers later said, "We flew over it, and within 30 seconds, we knew that this was the place. It was right by a dry lake, and man alive. We looked at that lake, we looked at each other, man, it was another Edwards airfield. So we wheeled around, landed on that lake, taxied up to one end of it. It was perfect, a perfect natural landing field. As smooth as a billiards table, without anything being done to it. The lake bed made an ideal strip for testing the aircraft. And the valleys and mountain ranges and the Nevada test site perimeter protected the site from any potential visitors. The CIA asked the AEC to acquire the land and add it to the Nevada test site. I guess that would allow them to acquire the land without raising any suspicions. The program director named the area Paradise Ranch to encourage workers to move to the new facility in the middle of nowhere. Later the name became shortened to just the ranch. In May of 1955, the survey team arrived at Groom Lake and laid out a 5,000-foot north-south runway on the corner of the lake bed. I guess we'll see that as we make our way to this lake bed right now. A fake company called CLJ was created to obscure Lockheed's involvement and recruited contractors to build up the facilities in the summer of 1955 at the cost of $800,000. The ranch initially consisted of little more than a few sheds, workshops, and trailers which housed the small teams. A little over a month later, the base consisted of a single paved runway, 3 hangars, a control tower, and basic accommodations for the personnel. Lockheed personnel began arriving in July of 1955, and the ranch received its first U-2 delivery on 24 July 1955. Military air transport services were set up between Area 51 and Lockheed's offices in Burbank, California. To preserve the secrecy, personnel were flown to Nevada on Monday mornings and flown back to California on Friday afternoons. The U-2 had multiple successful test flights, and in a matter of months it was on its way conducting spy missions over the Soviet Union with CIA pilots. And what about all this UFO stuff? Well, during the testing, civilian air pilots and air traffic controllers began spotting these Silver Slim U-2s flying at supposedly impossible heights for commercial or even military aircraft at the time. Well, the Air Force couldn't explain these sightings due to the secret classification of the program, so it devised these weather-related incidents and fictitious weather research programs to explain them away. These stories were pretty unconvincing and only fed the fervor over the conspiracy theorists' claims of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Subsequent projects would follow the U-2 project to develop more advanced surveillance aircraft, and they would also use the facility here at Groom Lake. One of those was known as Project AQUATONE and included the development and testing of the Lockheed A-12. It was the 12th design of the Archangel aircraft. Prior to that testing, many improvements were made here. This facility originally only housed 150 people and had that 5,000-foot runway with limited fuel, hangar, and shop space. A-12 test facility construction began in 1960 and would include a new 8,500-foot runway. It would upgrade the facilities and add a new 10,000-foot runway diagonally across the southwest corner of the lake bed. For crosswind landings, 2 unpaved airstrips, runways 927 and 321, were marked on the dry lake bed, and those are still visible today. Other aircraft programs would follow, such as the SR-71 Blackbird and the F-117 Nighthawk, all adding top-secret activity to the area, including the sightings of strange crafts that perform unusual and supposedly impossible maneuvers. Yes, more UFOs. We are on the ground here in Area 51. Take a look around, maybe find out for ourselves, is there anything going on here that the government's not telling us? One of the conspiracy theories is that the alien spacecraft and bodies of the extraterrestrials that were taken from the Roswell, New Mexico incident were taken here to Area 51 for analysis. Maybe we'll go to the Roswell site in a separate tour. This theory was reinforced in May of 1989 when Bob Lazar, under the pseudonym Dennis, conducted interviews with a Las Vegas TV station to discuss his employment at S4, a facility he claims is near here. And Lazar claimed to have worked as a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory in his 20s, where he helped to work on a particle accelerator. From there, he said he was recruited to a secretive government base known as S4. Lazar claims to have been hired to work for S4 for the purpose of developing advanced propulsion engines. He recalls being stunned when on his first few days here he was given a briefing book that outlines extraterrestrial spaceships and bodies. Send up the drone here, quickly take a look around. Not much activity today. I think we're safe. Which building would you put alien bodies and spaceships in? Bob Lazar's biggest claim was the method by which these alien ships worked and the use of, at the time, an undiscovered element known as Element 115. Essentially, he claimed that these spaceships used 3 anti-gravity cylinders underneath the ship that could swivel in 180-degree or 360-degree patterns depending on the direction These cylinders supposedly acted as like gravity amplifiers. Well, what do you think? Are there alien spacecraft and beings being reverse engineered here at S4? We probably don't have clearance to be here, so we should make this quick. I don't see anything. I don't think there's anything going on here out of the ordinary. Let's get the plane back in the air and head towards Alamo landing strip. The United States government always has been pretty tight-lipped about the facility here and what goes on here. Only acknowledged its existence for the first time in 2013. On June 25th, 2013, the CIA released an official history of the U-2 and Oxcart projects, which acknowledged the existence of Area 51. This was in response to a Freedom of Information Act that was requested originally in 2005 by the George Washington University's National Security Archive. The area surrounding this lake is permanently off limits to both civilian and normal military traffic. Even military pilots in the training area here risk a disciplinary action if they stray into this exclusionary box surrounding the Groom's airspace. Normal surveillance, such as cameras and roving armed patrols, is supplemented by what is believed to be buried motion sensors. We will take a pass right over Groom Lake, the Salt Flat. It is used again as a runway, and its airport code here it's an unofficial airport code, but it's KXTA. It's at the elevation of 4,409 feet. It's approximately 3.7 miles from the north to the south and 3 miles from the east to the west. Look down out to our right, we can see the two runways that were made for the crosswind landings. Quick look at our final destination near that small runway not too far to the east. So if you remember those white aircrafts with the red stripes that I told you to take note of while we were parked at the terminal at McCarran Airport? Well, Area 51 is the destination for Janet, unofficial name for that fleet of passenger aircraft operated on behalf of the United States Air Force to transport military personnel and other primary staff to Area 51 from McCarran Airport. As far as the name goes, Janet, some of the common explanations are just another non-existent terminal, or Joint Air Network for Employee Transportation, or a combination of two acronyms, JAN, Joint Army Navy, and ET, extraterrestrial. So they fly from McCarran to Area 51 to bring personnel and staff back and forth. Well, there you have it, a bit of history and what may have led to the extraterrestrial folklore surrounding Area 51. What do you think? What is going on there? Is it simply government top secret development, or something more sinister, or something more extraterrestrial? So we're almost to the landing field, Alamo landing field off to our left here. So let's get the plane down and take a look around that field. Fasten your seatbelts because you know my landings can be a bit rough. I am in no way going to ever be a test pilot here at Area 51 with my flying skills.
Area 51, that mysterious corner of the Nevada test site, is no longer much of a secret. The fact that secretive things go on here is a given, even to the Soviets, who make daily spy flights over the facility to take a peek at what's going on. These photos, never before shown in public, are about as close as anyone will ever come to seeing what the place looks like again. The dry bed of Groom Lake, corrugated metal buildings, a 3-mile-long runway, and some highly sophisticated radar and detection equipment. No one who knew Area 51 from the inside ever talked publicly about the saucer stories.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs, that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
The live interview with the shadowy dentist drew international attention.
We are on the ground, Alamo landing field. What we've talked about today is just my personal research for today's flight, so if you have any corrections, comments, or thoughts, just leave me a comment below. And as always, if you have any ideas on an interesting place to fly to and talk about, leave a comment below. We will get this plane turned around and take a quick look around this airfield. Let us know below, what do you really think goes on at Area 51? Do people just love to come up with theories and conspiracies, or do you think there's something to it? And if you find yourself anytime at Army Airport, see if you can find that Janet airline terminal with the white and red aircraft. Looks like we have some small bi-wing aircraft here in this landing field. Pretty interesting. Let's find a spot to park this aircraft and get it shut down. Alright, the aircraft is parked and shut down. Let's take a look around the area here.